Madam. Good morning, all of you. Good morning, all the principals, PGTs, TGTs, and all the model school students. Welcome to all for second year commerce webinar session. Now the session is on principles of management, second session. And in the today's, we are going to learn about the different levels of management and the difference between management and administration. And very important, the Henry Fayol's 14 principles of management. Now the today's session is going to be handled by MS Anjum Madam, PGT Commerce from TSMS Chegunta, Medak district. So students, I hope you are enjoying the sessions. Please watch the session carefully and note down the important points. And most important thing, the questions which at the end of the session, the questions which are giving to you, be prepared for the IP exam. Now I invite Anjum Madam to handle the session. Please, Madam.
A very good morning to the webinar team, principals, teachers, and my dear students. A warm welcome to second year commerce webinar sessions. Myself, I am MS Anjum, PGT Commerce, TSMS Chegunta, Medak district. My subject coordinator is Mr. MD Riazuddin sir, Principal TSMS Jarasangam, Sangareddy. I thank the higher officials and the webinar team for providing me this opportunity to give my sessions. Children, today we are going to discuss about the principles of management, 9th chapter, second part of the lesson, the most important part. It is the principles of management, the 14 Henry Fayol's principles, as well as about the administration and management differences. So let us begin. In the previous class, you have learned about the meaning and definition of management, characteristics of management, objectives of management, nature of management, and significance of management. So in this class, we will discuss about the levels of management, management and administration, and the very important topic you need to concentrate not only for the examination point of view. In examination point of view also, this chapter plays a very important role. You will be having 17 marks questions in the IP exam paper. So you have to concentrate on this, view the lessons again and again, complete grip over the lesson, and you should be able to score more and more marks for your exams. Children, after completion of this lesson, the learning outcomes, what you will be able to understand is that the different levels of management, and you will be also able to distinguish the management and administration and the principles of management. So let's begin. So there are 3 levels of management: the top level management, middle level management, and low level management. How many are there? There are 3. Okay, the first one is the top level management, and the second one is the middle level management, and the third one is the low level management. So let us study each one of them in detail. Top level management. So what is top level management? Who are included in this? Let us understand it. According to EFL Breck, a management consultant, the top level management includes the board of directors and managing directors, chief executive officers, CEOs, and general manager. So these are all the very topmost level. These all officials will be there in the organization. Okay, so what do they do actually being at the top level? What do? They establish policies, plans, and objectives, how the organization should work. Okay, What are the different rules set? What should be the objectives of the organization? How to make the organization run? Okay, all these things are handled, decided at the top level management. And the top level management also, it needs more human skills, that it needs to understand the human behavior, and also innovative skills. Innovative skills means how to generate the ideas and to innovate the new things, thinking skills which are different from others. Okay, so that they can handle the organization in a better way. They should also have the innovative decision making skills, the decisions which are not made commonly but different from others, which makes more profitability, more benefits to the organization. And they should also have the conceptual clarity. What is what? They should be able to know, and they should be also able to convey that to others in a more clear way. Okay. So these are all things the top level management should have, and even they are there for the policy making and plans, to make the plans and set the objectives. What are the functions of the top level management? The first one is fixing the objectives of the enterprise and protecting the interest of the enterprises as its trustees. It sets the objectives of the organization, how the standards should be fixed, what range of what should be the profitability, what are the welfare objectives, what are the social objectives, the organizational objectives, as we have discussed yesterday. So those are fixed at the top level management, and they also should work for the protecting the interest of the enterprises, means they should always work to benefit the enterprise. Okay, and then the second one is evaluating the achievements of the enterprise, whatever the achievements that they have achieved. So they will fix one standard, and according to that standard, are they able to get the results? Are their achievements far beyond the standard or below the standard? That also they need to evaluate. Standard in the sense they have to keep one target, up to that they have reached or they have not reached. They are how much below to the targets. Okay, and in all the other things also they are evaluating about the performance of the organization also. Then they also select the chief executives and they allocate their incomes, and they also discuss the complicated and the serious matters. So selection of the CEO, the top level will select the employees are up to their level itself. So next, the CEO belongs to the top level only. So they appoint the CEO, allocate the income of the CEO, and they also discuss the complicated as well as the serious matters if they are there any in the organizations, even during the normal times or even during the time of emergencies. So these are all the functions of the top level management. Then the next comes the middle level management. So middle level management bridges the gap between the top level management and the lower level management. So who comes under the middle level management, children? That is the departmental heads. Who are the departmental heads? Such as there are different departments in the organization, isn't it? The finance manager is there as the head of the finance department, personnel management, the head of the HR department, human resource department, and production manager as a head of the production department, marketing manager as a head of the marketing department. So all these are the departmental heads who comes under the middle level management. What are the main functions of the middle level management? So what are the functions? Such as to implement the policies and programs formulated by the top management for execution. So who are there in the top level management? that is the CEOs, directors, managers, general managers. So whatever the policies that they have made, so those are implemented in the middle level management. Okay, so they will implement the policies and programs formulated by the top management. So they execute or make the work done. Who are those? They are the middle level management. And the next, they also render the valuable services for the successful operation of the department. So whatever are the valuable services that they are appointed for, and whenever there is an emergency, there is any need, they should be there for to provide the valuable services for a successful running of the organization as well as successful running of their departments also. Then comes the lower level management. Who are there in the lower level management? The lower level management consists of the superintendents, supervisors, and foremen. Who are they? They are the superintendents, supervisors, and foremen. So, who are in touch with the direct arrangement of the workers? Means the top level management is not in direct touch with the workers. The middle level management is also not direct in touch with the workers of the organization, isn't it? Who are the indirect touch with the workers who play an important role? Workers play an important role in the organization, isn't it, children? If they stop working, the entire organization comes to an like it will stuck at a place. If there is no work by the workers, the workers play an important role. So these supervisors, superintendents, and the foremen, they are direct touch with the workers, and they also with the arrangement of the workers also. Clear? So the supervisors are those who are having authority to exercise independent judgment in hearing the problems of the workers, hearing to the workers, discharging the work, means doing the work, doing their duties, and apart from that, disciplining the workers. Means the workers, whoever are there, they need to be in punctual. They need to be doing their work without wasting the time. So all these things also are checked by the supervisors. And they also reward who is the best employee of the organization. They have to reward them also, isn't it? So these all things come under as a duty of the supervisor. They also take actions of similar nature. Apart from all this, these are all the important. Apart from that, many other duties also whichever allotted them as a supervisor in with respect to the employees. So these all people come under the lower level management. Let us see what role they play. In offices, they are known as supervisors. In offices, they are called as supervisors. And in factories, they are called as foremen. Okay, there is different designation or the name that is given to them. What is it? That is, in the offices, they are called as supervisors, and in the factories, they are called as foremen. So in the present age, supervisors have an important place in the management hierarchy. Why there is an important place to them? Why they are considered? They are considered as friends and guides and well-wishers of the labor. Why? Because they are playing a very important role. They are the bridging the gap between the top level management and the middle level management and the low level management, that is the workers actually. So and any sort of problem the laborers are facing, so they cannot contact directly to the top level management, isn't it? To whom they can contact? They can contact to the next head, whoever is there. Who is the next head there? The supervisors are the next head, or, or next official to them who is available. So they can convey the message of the laborers to the higher authorities. So the supervisors play an important role, and they act as, or they are considered as friends, guides, and the well-wishers of the labor. Now let us go for the next concept, that is management and administration. So administration is, these are the two different terms. We hear generally about the management. Who is the management here? We generally ask the question. And there is also another term, administration. Are they same terms or not? Let us try to understand. So administration is considered as wider scope. Uh, Administration is bigger than, much bigger than the management. Management is part of administration, whereas administration covers everything, whereas management is part and parcel of the administration. So Hyman, a management consultant, he describes administration as overall determination of policies. Okay, the overall determination, the policies are determined, and also they set in administration the major objectives also. Policies are determined, they also set the major objectives, they also identify the general purposes of the organization, and they also lay out the broad programs and major projects. So these are all the major things done in the administration. What are they? Such as determining the policies, setting of the objectives of the organization, okay, the identifying the general purposes and laying down the broad programs. And what are the major projects of the organization, having a concentration over them. So these are all the things that are done in the administration. Then what is management then? Management is essentially an executive function which directs human efforts in getting things done. So it is an executive function. So you must have studied about in civics the organs of government. What are they? That is the legislature, the executive, isn't it? And the judiciary also. We will not talk about judiciary now. Executive and the legislature. Legislature, what is done in the legislature? It is they make the laws. Whereas what is done in the executive, those laws are implemented. Similarly, we can compare that with the management and administration here. Administration makes the policies, whereas management implements those policies. It's an executive function which directs the human efforts for getting things done. Administration is considered with policy making for achieving objectives, whereas management is considered as executing the policy. Children, I hope you are able to understand the difference here. Okay, let us see the differences of administration and management. In administration, there are the broad goals for which the industrial enterprises have been set up. They are the broad goals. What is the purpose of setting up? What are the standards that are set? So those are all. What are the policies should be made? Okay, so that is a different concept. Whereas under management, plans would lead to the fulfillment of the enterprise. What is required? Those things are fulfilled by the management. That is, the production has to be done, the finance has to be arranged. So management is part of administration. Broad policies and principles are laid down in the administration, whereas those policies and principles are executed into practices. Policy is there, the rule is there, that has to be made into a practice, that has to be implemented, which is done under the management. It draws out the outline and framework of the execution. Administration draws out the outline and framework of the execution of the policies. That is how much uh, the policy should be made. What are the different things should be there in the policy? It will make a framework or the outline of the policy. Whereas management, it controls and supervises the activities concerned to the execution of the policy. It will check whether the work is being done or not, and how to make the people to work. Getting things done is the work of the management. Whereas the administration, it provides direction, guidance, and leadership in all the activities of the enterprise. Okay, it provides the direction, how to work. It gives the guidance, support, and it also will act like a leadership for the activities of the enterprise. Whereas the management, it coordinates that it with the various activities of the particular department. There are so many activities in one department. Production, there are number of activities. In finance, there are number of activities. So coordinates the different activities within the department, and apart from that, it coordinates the activities of various departments also. Each department, all departments have to have the coordination among them. If one is there, they should have the touch with each other. They should be linked with each other. Whatever the activities that are done in the production department should be made known to the uh, finance department, and the finance department should have the complete idea about the personnel department. Okay, so whatever is happening in each of the departments should have the information to all the departments compulsory. So that is the work of the management. Children, I hope you have understood the differences between the administration and management. Now let us go for, see here you can see the administration at the top level in this picture. Okay, and it executes the policies. Policy making is done over here, and the management at the down level, it will make the execution of the policies. So now we have come to the very important topic, that is the principles of management. So let us discuss the principles of management. Who gave these principles of management, and what role do they play in the management, in the work of the management? Let us try to understand. So Henry Foyle is known for the general principles of management. He formulated them in the 20th century. So who is the person who has given these principles of management? He is Henry Foyle. So he has formulated them in the 20th century. He graduated in the year 1860 as a mining engineer. He was a mining engineer, but not only that, he did several other, he worked in several other uh, roles also. So what were, how did he work? He was an engineer, he was an industrial magnate, and also he was a successful chief executive. So by observation, he could gain a lot of knowledge about how to run the enterprises to make them successful, to make them successful, as well as to have the coordination among the different departments, and how the which would give the profitability and benefit to the organization without any chaos or the disturbances in the organization. So his experience has made him to give all these 14 principles of management. So he wrote uh, in his book, that is about management, is to manage, is to forecast, to plan, to organize, to command, to coordinate, and to control. So this definition yesterday we have in the previous class we have discussed already. So what is management? Is to forecast, to identify whether there is how is the situation for the production of a product. Is it favorable, or whether to make the product or not to make, to procure or buy the product for reselling, which is favorable, to plan how to do it. Okay, to lay down the different plans, and which is the most suitable plan to them, whether the plan A works out or the plan B works out, and even to organize the different things, such as to arrange the factors of production. What are the factors of production, children? That is land, labor, capital, and organization. So arranging all those things, and even to command over the entire team, to give them the different functions to do, and to coordinate the different departments and even different employees, and to control. To control is to evaluate whether the work is being done or not. So this is what is called as the, these are all things together we can call it as the principles of management, which we will be going to discuss in detail in the further slides. So he was earlier to this, there were no experts who could give such principles of management. So he was called as father of management. So let us go for understanding the different principles. What are the Foyle's principles of management? The Foyle's principles of management are: the first one is division of labor. The second one is parity of authority and responsibility. Third is discipline. Fourth is unity of command. Fifth is unity of direction. Sixth is the subordination of individual interest to general interest. And seventh is remuneration of personnel. Eighth is the centralization. Ninth is the scalar chain. 10th is the order. 11th is the equity. 12th is the stability or tenure of the personnel. 13th is the initiative. 14th is spirit de corps. So let us learn each of them in detail. Division of labor. So what is the meaning of division of labor? So suppose I will give one example. There is an order of making it, the tables, that is 100 tables has come. What is the order? That is to make 100 tables. And the organizer is having 5 workers with him. And how many each of them can make? Each of them can make 20 tables, isn't it? So is what the organizer should do now? Whether give the 20 task to each of the worker? Is it called as the division of labor? No. He has to give all the 100 tables, making of the 100 tables to all the employees, but it is not compulsory that the entire table is made by all the employees, but he has to ask them to make each of the part by one employee. Suppose the legs of the table should be done by one employee, the top of the table should be done by one employee, the desk of the table should be done by one employee. So all 100 tables are made by all the employees, but that doesn't mean that they are making the entire table over there. They are making only a part of table, but they are making the 100 table. They are able to reach the 100 tables task. So this is called as division of labor. So why this has been done? Why? Because the reason is that if an employee, if a worker does the same work, that is making the legs of the table continuously, if he is doing the same work, what he will gain? He will gain the efficiency of making that part. It will become more easy for him. The speed of making that table also will, that part of the table will increase. Okay, so this kind of division is called as the division of labor. So by repeating a small part of the work, the individual acquires speed and accuracy in his performance. Isn't it, children? I hope you have understood the example. So this is called as division of labor. So this leads to the specialization of making or doing a particular task. He will get a greater efficiency in doing that particular work. The example which I gave you is a very small example. There can be number of such examples where the division of the work is possible. So in that way, each of the employee, the one who is perfect in doing that particular work, that work should be given to him so that he can improve in doing that work continuously. Is it clear? So this is called as division of labor. Then let us go for the parity of authority and responsibility. Authority refers to the right of superior to give order to subordinate, okay, and to take the decisions on specified matter, use the resources of the organization, and guide and regulate the behavior of the subordinates. Who are the subordinates here? The one who is working under him. So a person who is the head, he is having the authority to direct, to give an order to the subordinate, and also to take the decisions on the different matters also, specified matters also. And he also has the authority to use the organization resources and guide and regulate the behavior of the subordinates. That is called as authority, giving order, utilizing the resources, taking the decisions, guiding, regulating the behavior of the subordinates. All this comes under the authority, the right, we can say. Okay, then what is responsibility? Responsibility is obligation with respect to the function of the performance of the functions. He has to be responsible at the same time. It is not just he gives the order, he also should take the responsibility for the accomplishment of the goals that are there before him. Responsibility is the obligation, is a uh, duty of that particular head of the department. It just not implies to the head of the departments, but to each and every individual. When you are enjoying the rights, at the same time you have to be responsible also. It is not that we'll just enjoy the rights and we will not be responsible for anything. You have to be responsible in our daily life also, isn't it, children? We just cannot enjoy all the rights which are there in our families generally. We being the uh, you being the children of your family, you will have so many powers in your hands. You want to enjoy all the things, isn't it? At the same time, you have to be responsible also. Do the work, behave obediently, do the task of learning, going through the books, getting good marks. Those comes under the responsibilities. Okay, so authority and responsibility, they go hand in hand. They both should be accomplished by the heads of the organizations, the ones who hold the superior authority or superior position in the organization. Then the next one is discipline. What is discipline? In management means also obedience. Okay, so all the employees, everyone should be in discipline. They should come to the office regularly, punctually, behave with others properly, proper conduct. You just cannot uh, behave as if you behave in our with our family members. There is certain code or there is certain conduct in the offices which you need to uh, apply, and you just cannot disobey there. Okay, and you have to be very uh, careful while you are with your superiors, and you also should the person those who are working in the organization complying with the rules and regulations, they should know all the rules, they should follow all the rules and regulations of the organization. Okay, the person who cannot follow all the rules and regulations, he is not fit to work in the organization. Okay, discipline is required both among the workers as well as among the managers also. Suppose in an organization, the workers are, there will be certain time fixed for the workers, that is 8 hours they should work in the organization. Suppose if they are not working those, utilizing those 8 hours exactly, then it is completely wrong. They have to use their 8-hour time, whatever the work period is there per day, they should full-fledged work for the organization only. They should not go for, like, during the working hours, they should not go out or they take the breaks. This is all against the rules. They are disobeying the rules over there. It is not just the workers should obey the rules and regulations of the organization. Even the management also should have the discipline in them. It is facilitated that if there are good supervisors at all levels, rules are clear and penalties are imposed with fairness. So if the head of the departments, they are good, they are able to identify, have an insight in them that who is what, then the rules will be very clearly levied, and to whom the punishment should be given, if the who is exactly not doing the work and who is doing the work, if they have that insight to identify, then it becomes easy for them to impose the penalties with fairness. The managers, they should not be partial, they should not be good for only few and for the remaining harsh. It is against the rule. I hope you are able to understand. So let us go for the next one. Unity of command. What is unity of command? The principle states that a subordinate should receive orders and be accountable to one and only one superior. Suppose in an organization, if the employee or the worker is given the orders by 4 different superiors, what will happen? What will happen, children? They will get confused. The employees or the workers, there will be huge confusion to whom to follow, whether to follow this superior and this superior, the other superior, or the other superior. If they follow to only one superior, what about the other superiors? They will be unhappy with them, with him, isn't it? So, whatever is the order, it should come only from one and only one superior. It should not be more than one superior, which is called as unity of command. So, no employee should receive instructions from more than one person. So, the subordinate will be confused with this, as I have said. And there may be also conflicts or the differences or quarrels between the superiors regarding how the work. Not only the employee will be confused, even at the top level, the managers, whoever are there, or the superiors, whoever are there, they will also have the differences among them. So, unity of command is the subordinate should receive the orders from one and only one superior. Is it clear? Okay. So now let us go for the next. It is unity of direction. Unity of direction is efforts of all the members should be directed towards the common goals. Suppose there will be so many departments in the organization. So the production manager should always concentrate on improving the efficiency of all the workers and to increase the production. So what is the common goal for him? The common goal is to improve the efficiency and to increase the production. Again, why that has to be done? What is the another goal? That is to increase the profitability. So that goal, the department should keep in mind to increase the efficiency and also to improve the performance of the workers. Every department should have its own goal and it should also direct towards the common goal. The finance department is, what is the goal of the finance department? To less the cost of the production, to reduce all the expenses of the organization. Why? What is the common goal there? Again, to increase the profitability of the organization. So all these departments, they should make their subordinates, whoever are there, they should work for the common goal. The work, the efforts of all the members should be directed towards the common goals, and there should not be any deviation from the plan prepared for achieving the objectives of the firm. So they should not get deviated from their from the objectives which are set for the organization. So the principle seeks to ensure unity of action, coordination of strength, and focusing of effort. So the three things are very important. What are those three things? That is unity of action. All the department heads as well as the workers, the subordinates, they should work for the common goals. They should put their strength together, coordinate the strength, and they also focus on the effort that they put to derive the objectives of the organization. Okay, and for this, there should be one head of the organization and they should plan for the group of activities having the same objectives. As I have said, for different departments, there are different heads and they have in each department different activities that they do to accomplish the same objectives of the entire organization. The common goals of the organization should be achieved. I hope you are able to understand this. So let us see the difference between the unity of direction and unity of command. So what is the difference? If we say you may get confused, unity of command or what is unity of direction. So let us try to understand this, the basic differences. Under unity of command, one subordinate should receive orders from one and only one superior. It is only one and one superior only the subordinate should receive the order. Okay, that is unity of command because he should avoid the confusion and he should be able to do the work more efficiently. He should receive the order from one and only one superior only. That is unity of command. So what is unity of direction? Each group of activity should have same objectives. Their objectives should be same. There should be one head and one plan. Okay. So they should work to achieve the common goals, major objectives of the organization. So what is the aim here? Why this unity of command is important? Because it prevents the dual subordination. Dual subordination in the sense, if two people give the different say different orders to the employees, so they will get confused and they don't know what to do and what not to do. So it is dual subordination. So with unity of command, that's dual subordination, working under two persons or more than two persons could be prevented. Then what is unity of direction? It prevents overlapping of activities. So it is doing one activity in one department, similar activity in other department. So this is also means one department should not involve in the other department's activities and it should work only and only for the benefit of the organization. So the finance department cannot involve in the matter of the production department. Department cannot involve in the activities of the personnel department. Okay, so it prevents the overlapping of the activities also. Then implications. So it whom does it affect? It affects the individual employee, whoever it is there, and whom does the unity of direction affects? If there is no unity of the direction, so it affects the entire organization. Whole organization gets affected if they don't follow the unity of direction. So now let us go for the another principle of the management, that is subordination of individual interest to general interest. So what is individual interest and what is general interest? So the interest of one employee or one group of employees should not prevail over that of company or broader organization. For example, if a person is smoking in the office and he enjoys it, okay, so and it is giving a distress, a problem to whoever the customers who comes over there. So what is the general interest there and what is the individual interest there? Smoking is the individual interest and it is disturbing the customers and the people over there in the office. So it is disturbing means what is the general interest of the organization? They should be avoiding that person. They should ask that person to move away from the organization, and or else he can do that when he is not in the office or in the working time. So the interest of one employee should not be taken more important, should not be given more importance when there are group of employees are there, or when it is disturbing to the general interest of the organization. The interest of the firm is more important than the interest of the persons. So individual interest must be subordinated to the general interest or the interest of the whole firm. So firm's interest is more important. Firm's benefit is more important than the individual interest of the organization. So firm's benefits should be given more importance than giving importance to one single employee. It means the individual interest is should be looked down, and when it is related with so many employees of the organization, when it comes in comparison with so many employees of the organization. Then the seventh one is the remuneration to the personnel. Personnel means the employees of the organization. So to maintain the loyalty and the support of the workers, so they must receive full and fair wages. So when does a worker works with a lot of interest, dedicated, devotedly in the organization, when he is able to satisfy all his needs, apart from social needs, personal needs, okay, then he can devote. So how they would be satisfied when he is getting fair wages for himself? He must be given full and fair wages in proper time, so that he can render his services with a lot of interest. So remuneration should be paid with maximum satisfaction to the employees as well as the employer. So the employee also should feel that whatever he is doing, for that he is getting sufficient salary. And the employer also should feel that whatever he is paying is according to the work that he is doing, and it also does gives proper benefit to the organization. Vice versa. Okay, so they should put in their best efforts to improve the productivity. So when these two things, when employee also is getting satisfied and the employer is also getting satisfied, then it leads to more productivity. Okay, when the employee is getting satisfied, when he starts putting best efforts, whenever it is called for people, generally these employees will be more loyal. If they have been working for 20 years, they will not never like to move out of the organization only. They always want to continue in the same organization, though many offers would be there. Okay, apart from there, because there can be timely increments to them, and their efforts are recognized. Even at any moment they are called for, they would be ready to go and provide their services. The method of wage payment adopted should also be satisfactory to the employer. So the method how the wages are being paid, weekly basis or monthly basis, whatever it is. For the workers, sometimes in some of the organization, there can be the daily basis payments also, there can be the weekly payments also, and there can be the monthly. So whatever the method that has been appointed by the employers, it should also be known to be known and best satisfied to the employers also. Children, I hope you have understood. Then let us go for the next one, centralization. What is centralization? Centralization is the decision making and planning of the organization. Some of the organizations like Apple, you must be knowing this brand Apple, and McDonald's. You know McDonald's, children? Okay, so these two organizations are best known for centralized management. Means the top level management only will decide what is to be done. Even the product reaches to the final customer also. For example, McDonald's, which how many pickles to be used in the burger is decided by the top level management only. Not neither less nor more. Even if you order a burger in a McDonald's, they will get the burger with number of pickles in it, which is the direction given by the top level management there. So we can understand how concentrated the decisions are there, how the authority is concentrated. There is another term called decentralization, where the decisions are made even at the lower level management also. Okay. So the appropriate degree of centralization and the degree of decentralization. So it is varying with different concerns. It may not be same. Some organizations will be flexible, decentralized. Some organizations, the top level organizations, the top level management of the organizations would decide the different decisions. It will plan there at the top level and it will be followed throughout at all the levels of the management. So that is centralization. So centralization can change the degree of centralization. It can change, it can vary with the different concerns. It is a problem of finding the measure that will give overall yield. So finding the measure means how much centralized the management should be. So to give the overall yield. So under centralization, managers and executives play an important role. Okay, who play an important role? The centralized under centralization, managers or executives, they play an important role. So now let us go for the next one. Scalar chain. What is scalar chain? Scalar chain is the chain of superiors ranging from ultimate authority to the lowest rank. Here in this picture you can see the top level is A, B, the next is B, the next is C, D, E and F. This is one department. Okay, and here the top level is A, here L, M, N, O and P. This is another department. Okay, so if a message has to be conveyed by F to the top level, so can he approach directly to the top level? No, they have to approach to the next head of the organization. They cannot approach, they are not supposed to speak to the top level, neither to the next, leaving this, the next D or C also. So Mr. F, he want to, for example, this level, he want to speak to certain thing with the top level. So it is not possible. How it can be conveyed? It can be conveyed through the message from E to from F to E, from E to D, from D to C, from C to B, and from B to A. This is the chain. This chain is called as scalar chain. Children, I hope you have understood. Then it shows the line of authority from highest to the lowest of the lowest one for the purpose of communication. This is the method of communication from low level to high level. So this will help the employee to know the person to whom he should contact for advice. So F should know to whom he should contact. E should know to whom he should contact. And D should know to whom he should contact. And C should know to whom he should. The next level of employee who is existing, it will give an idea and knowledge to them that the next superior to them is that particular person. Okay, to get the advice or get the guidance. Okay, then what is gangplank? So Henry Ford also spoke about gangplank. So suppose an employee, for example, E, he want to speak to the next department same level employee. So what he can do, he has to do, he can do like he has to approach to D, C and B and A. It will give a lot of problem from A, L, M, N, O, P. It will not, the message will have take a lot of time to reach to the employee. So this same level employee, if he is there and if he want to speak to another same level of employee, then he can directly speak, directly contact and get communicated with that particular employee. So this communication from one department to another department and being in the same level is very important. Again, E cannot speak to N. or O cannot speak to D. E can speak only to O, and he can communicate with only O. So this particular thing is called as gangplank. So these all things will be helpful to the employees to have better communication, to get good advices, and also the guidance. Children, I hope I am clear. Okay, then next go for the order. What is order? Order in the sense that in management. Okay, in management, order means everything in the right place, right things in the right place. Okay, it is not that the one who is efficient in a particular thing, he should be there in that. There can be two different uh, orders. One is material order and the social order. Material order in the sense the physical resources should be in the right place. The different things of the organization, they should be in the right place. Okay, and apart from that, what is social order? The people also should be in the right place. All the things should be arranged in the right places, in their right places, with their right things in their hands to work. So with that, what will happen? The employees will find it convenient to work for the work to take place. So this is proper arrangement of material things and the human beings, right things and right persons in their right place. So social order, it requires the employment of the right man in the right place. So this makes the work more convenient, and they can do the work with full of efficiency, with full of concentration, devote themselves towards the work. So that is called as order. The next one is equity. What is equity? Equity is the combination of kindness and justice. So the employers, the management should be kind towards the mm, employees or the workers under them. So it makes them get the devotion and loyalty from the personnel. If they behave in a harsh way, if they behave uh, in a way without having any proper communication with them, it creates the problem to the organization. On the whole, it affects the profitability of the organization. It affects the policies of the organization. It affects the objectives of the organization. So the managers should be kind. They should do justice to their subordinates while they are talking. They should have the knowledge of the human behavior to what kind of situation the human beings would work. They talk, they behave. These all things are very important. The knowledge of the psychology of the different subordinates, different workers, so that they can behave according to that. They have to be very even kind to them. They have to do justice to them. If they come to you, approach it to you, and they ask for certain uh, uh, help or something, like officially if they are unable to do or unable, they have certain problems, the manager should have a kind ear or towards, they should listen to their problems and try to sort out those problems also. Okay, and if the manager shows the kindness and justice in dealing with the labor and capital, the cordial relationship develops between the labor and the capital. Capital in the sense uh, uh, the machinery and all those things comes under the capital. So if they show the kindness and justice towards the labor and capital, it will create a lot of difference in achieving the objectives of the organization. So now let us proceed towards the next. Besides it, it will also make the workers devoted to them. Once you are kind towards an employee, throughout his life, he will be devoted to the manager. The managers also could have good sense. They should speak to all the employees in a good way, and he should also have a good experience, good nature. The person should have a very good nature to manage to make all the people work, to get not to leave their jobs and they go away. It is very, very important. To make the work done, these managers have to have all this in as the quality. The application of the principle equity leads to the successful working of the firm. Now let us go for the next one, children. The stability of tenure of the personnel. So what is the tenure? The time period the worker or the employee works in an organization. It should be stable. So in certain organization, there is a policy called hire and fire. Hire and fire in the sense, anytime they can appoint and anytime they can fire that person. Fire in the sense not firing. They can make that person quit, leave the job and go. They will remove him. It's called as firing. So is that policy a good policy? No, the employee must be provided the security of job. Only then the employee feels that he should work for the organization. He won't feel that again this job will be there to him or not, whether he will be able to feed his family or not. That tension will get removed from his mind and he will start working carefreely for the organization only, devotedly towards the organization only. It is very, very important. And he will know that he has to work at one place. He will take interest, give his best performance. There are so many examples in the different organizations that workers would be working from past 20 years or 30 years. What is the reason there? A mediocre employee is better than an employee who moves from one organization to another organization who is an expert in the work. So who is more beneficial? The mediocre, the one who knows the work up to certain extent itself. But still he lays into the organization, he will be there in the organization and he doesn't leave the job. He is more better than an employee who moves from one place to another place. So the manager should have that idea how to retain the employees in the organization only. He should not let them go away. Good employees are good uh, assets to the organization. Good employees are the assets to the organization. So there is no stability of tenure. The employers, they will feel that there is like their job may be there or may not be there, and they may wait for the opportunity to leave this organization and go. So it is the talent of the manager to make the employees retain into the organization, and the employee also should feel that he should devote himself for a particular organization. So it depends upon how the managers deal. And instability will is instability of the tenure is a evidence. What evidence? It is a proof that the affairs of the organization are not good, bad running of the affairs. Children, I hope you have understood the stability. What is more important? The stability. The employees should work continuously in the organization and they should not think about leaving the organization. And that depends upon the efficiency and the talent of the managers to make them retain in the organization. Okay, the next one is initiative. What is initiative? Initiative is coming forward to do the work. Initiation, taking the initiation, giving ideas for the organization. So it involves thinking and execution of the plan and ensuring its success. So this gives the zeal and energy to the organization. So the file suggests the managers to allow the employees to show initiative as much as possible. So even the ideas need not be come from the top level. Even the employees also at the low level, they also should give ideas to the organization. Okay, then only the employees will feel motivated. If they are praised for their ideas, then they will feel more motivated. They would feel like executing that particular plan will give him a huge promotion of that plan will give him a boost up towards the to work for the organization. Is it clear, children? So the freedom to propose a plan, to execute it is known as initiative. It need not come always from the top level and even from the low-level employees and the employees of the organization. From them also ideas can be taken and they can be executed so that it leads to some ideas that can be very good ideas from the side of the employees. So they can be taken and they can give uh, a lot of reward, some of the rewards to such kind of employees who have done a better job in the organization. Okay, who has given a particular plan which is providing huge profits to the organization. Clear, children? So it will enable the employees. It will enable the employees to experience the keenest satisfaction from their job. So when an employee is appreciated by the superior, it is as if he is getting a lot of boost up. He will feel more satisfied. He will never think of leaving the job itself. So this is called as initiative. Then next, let us go for the last concept, that is esprit de corps. It's a French phrase. Esprit de corps is a French phrase, children. So what does it mean? That it means the teamwork. Okay, there should be no divide and rule policy in the departments, in the organizations. Okay, it implies to unity is strength, which comes from the harmony of the personnel. So when all are working together, are satisfied with their jobs, are having no grudges against each other, then only they can work for the organization. There should be a lot of teamwork, a lot of importance should be given for the teamwork as well as group endeavors. Okay, teams should be made and there should be no grudges, no enmity, nothing. And the employer, the superiors, the managers also should not try to create the differences among the employees so that they can have complete authority over them. So there should be loyalty in the organization and the concern for the honor of the organization to which one belongs. This can be achieved through the adoption of the principle of unity of command. How is this possible? If they adopt the principle, what is the principle of unity of command? What is it? Yes, it is. There should be one superior to one employee or worker. There should not be more superiors, which creates the confusion among to the employee. It creates the grudges to the among the different superiors who are above, isn't it, children? So if the principle of unity of command is followed properly, then it will lead to no uh, it will establish the harmony and peace. It will avoid all the differences among the different employees at different levels. So unity in strength is very, very important among the organization, which will again lead to the benefit of the organization. It will lead to the better functioning of the organization. Children, I hope you have understood all the principles of management. Is it clear, children? Okay, so now let us move towards the evaluation part. We have come to the end of the class. Now, you need to test your knowledge. You have to know, go through this video again and again, go through the class again and again, and read the textbook also. Read the textbook carefully. There are many more points in that. If you read and go through that, you will get many more points as well as better understanding of what I have taught you. And try to answer these questions. So what is the first question? Is distinguish between management and administration. The second question is explain the levels of management, which is of 10 marks question. The first one is distinguish between management and administration is 5 marks question, children. And the third question is explain the different principles of management, which is very, very important. I'm again repeating that there are 17 marks from this chapter. Yesterday's class was important. Today's class is also important and tomorrow's class is also important. Is it clear? So kindly weave this and get the most of it. make a notes of all the points, go through the textbook and learn all the principles. So you need to write all the 14 principles if this question comes. So you have to get the complete idea of all the principles by heart, in the sense that you should have the knowledge of all the subtitles which are there in the uh, answer. Is it clear? Okay. So with this, I would like to end the session. Hope you will give this and get the utmost knowledge out of it. Thank you. I thank Shailaja ma'am. I thank Riazuddin sir for providing me this platform to tell this lesson. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the students for watching this webinar session. And in the next session in management, we are going to learn about the functions of management. And finally, thanks to all. Thank you.